we're very happy to be here with you as Mr. Pat Murphy and myself, Dan Tortora, are here on site, on location at Marywood University, having some fun here at Marywood, overlooking, as you can see right through this window, part of the athletic complex where we have our gym here for volleyball as well as basketball and some practices and different things going on. So always happy to be here where sports meets that thing called life. And Mr. Murphy, always good to see you.
Dan, thank you. It's good to see you too. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, happy to be here with you. I figured with everything going on with realignment, I'd wear an Oregon Duck type shirt today.
What's the latest with realignments?
The latest with realignment, it's reached kind of a stop point in the sense, I don't want to say it's reached a stop point. It's reached we're not talking about it right now point. And I think with Big 12 Media Days coming up here, going on, and then next week the SEC, and I'll be down at the ACC for Charlotte, I think what's going to happen, in my opinion, is maybe these conferences are going to wait and not let us in the media hear anything. They're either going to drop it when we're there or they're going to drop it right when we leave. Like, I'm going to be getting on the plane to come home from Charlotte, and they're going to say Clemson's going to the SEC.
So what you're saying to me is they like to operate in a shroud of secrecy.
Yeah, there was a lot of realignment, and then it got quiet, you know, and I think, and I was asking people this morning, you could vote in the polls, and I implore you to do so, as I'll scooch a little bit closer here, but, you know, I definitely implore you to get out into the polls on Twitter at CallDT, that's CALLDT, and we put out stuff pretty much every single week. I've asked people what they thought about where they want Oregon to be. And as of right now, it was Big 12, and the votes this morning, very early morning that we put up this post, as I was up a little bit after 5. So what we have here is, so far, where would you like to see the Oregon Ducks compete in realignment? 66% of you said the Big 12, 11% said stay in the Pac-12, 17% Big 10, 6% the ACC. And the only reason why I brought up the ACC is that there's this potential loose partnership with the ACC where the West Coast Pac-12 and the East Coast ACC would have a championship game, which I think is ridiculous.
So you're saying that the ACC would split up into two divisions, one an east part of ACC and a west part of ACC?
Well, the remaining 10 teams in the Pac, if they were to stay that way with Oregon and company, they would have still their conference. The ACC would have its conference still, and then they join together and just have a championship game.
Yeah.
So it'd be this weird, I don't even know what you would do for that, to say like the winner of the ACC Pac-12 would qualify for the college football play. Like, I don't really know how they would work it. Everybody's trying to respond to the SEC. I called a lot of the moves things that are happening in a bigger picture I saw coming months ago. And I think we're heading to an FBS that actually is going to be split into 3 groups. I think it's going to be FBS Tier 1, 2, 3, then the FCS, then D2, D3 when it comes to football.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I just think when we're looking at realignment, I just think that with USC and UCLA leaving the Pac-12, that's a major hit to the Pac-12 because the largest media market there is Los Angeles, and how do you recover from that? I don't know if you can.
No, and I think obviously it's good for the Big Ten, right? It makes sense for the Big Ten, as we're here with Pat Murphy, Executive Director of Marywood University here, Executive Director of Athletics here with us, and we are speaking about Marywood, a year in review in the world of sports, but also the grander picture because you have spent a lot of time in Division I. So to give some context to the conversation before we get into the USC, UCLA talk, just what your road has been to get to Marywood and where you have worked to let people know that Division I connection that you've had.
Okay, so I started out at my alma mater, which was Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia. I went there out of high school and had a wonderful experience there. I didn't have any preconceived notions of getting in this field. What happened was I didn't have a job, and the dean of my department saw me walking around campus one day and said, "Hey, would you like to be a graduate assistant? If you have nothing going on, we'll allow you to get your master's degree. We'll pay you like a little stipend or whatever." So then they got me a job in the athletic department at Marshall there. And that job led to another job, which led to another job, and here I am. So I've been at a few different institutions. I've been at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I've been at Iona College. There I went from Iona to DePaul University out in Chicago, and then I came back to the East Coast for a time at Fairfield University, and now here at Marywood.
You were over at DePaul, and what was the time period that you were at DePaul?
I would have been at DePaul, I want to say 96 through 2001. So I came in when Pat Kennedy came in, who was the head coach at Florida State.
And we see, DePaul obviously transitioned into going into the Big East,
yeah, we
right?
were in Conference USA when I was there.
Right, and so Conference USA has only known the world of poaching, right?
Yeah.
They've been poached a million times. Basically what happens is when these conferences in the quote-unquote power group, right, the SEC, the ACC, the Pac-12, the Big 10, Big 12, when they go after the Sun Belt or they go after the American Athletic or the Big East at the time, then normally teams replenish in Conference USA. So what can you say? I mean, being a part of Conference USA when you were there at DePaul, just the fact that, that conference has had to basically reinvent itself many, many times, including this year, within the next couple of years, where they will lose 9 total schools and bring in 4.
Yeah, so I can speak to it when I was there.
Yeah.
When I was in Conference USA, I didn't know if it really made a lot of sense for DePaul. We had nothing in common. It was like a mishmash of different schools. Like,
yeah.
What does DePaul, which is the largest Catholic university in the country, have in common with Southern Mississippi?
Yeah.
And what does Louisville have in common with East Carolina? So it was just it was almost like a landing spot for schools that had no place to go at that point in time. And the 2 big schools in that league at the time were Cincinnati and Louisville, and they were cast off of the old Metro conference. So, it was just like a mishmash of schools, and none of the schools had anything in common with some of the other schools. So, I think DePaul's in the right place right now in the Big East. They're in with like-minded institutions, so I think it worked out in the long run.
Yeah, I think and it's strange to talk about DePaul in the sense of the fact that, they're in a situation where the Catholic 7 broke away, schools that don't have to worry about football or football at a different level, and that is what 10 years ago pretty much started this whole thing, right? Is the Big East, to the Catholic 7 taking the name, taking the logo, the American being left with Cincinnati, South Florida, UConn. Temple was coming back in at the time, and then the American had to go to Conference USA and start taking teams, and then you fast forward to now, the Big 12 takes UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and the American responds by taking 6 in place of their 3, all of them from Conference USA. You brought up, what does DePaul have in common with Southern Miss? I'll tell you what they have in common. They're both leaving Conference USA. DePaul left years ago, and Southern Miss is going to be part of the Sun Belt with Marshall and Old Dominion now.
Yeah, but I think, when I look at, and listen, things are a lot different today than they were 10 years ago when DePaul left for the Big East.
Yeah.
But back then, the mindset was more along the lines of aligning themselves with schools that are like them, Catholic institutions and large media markets with roughly the same academic profile.
Yeah.
But things have changed since then.
Yeah, and realignment, who would have thought 10 years ago it was going to get as dirty as it got? And I remember being in the room in Rhode Island when the Big East was, in the background of this, right? Temple was coming back in. Steve Adazio, who's a good friend, he was there. and he's talking about the return and what we're going to be and everything we're going to do. And he's a big time, when he talks, you listen type of coach. And I just remember being in that room and the reality that, I mean, Doug Marrone was the coach of Syracuse at the time, and being in Newport, Rhode Island, it's like, here's the Big East, right? Here's football, here's the conference, here's the best conference in men's basketball, in my opinion, back then. And then here we go with realignment in the background. You go there knowing that Syracuse is leaving, that Notre Dame is leaving and everything but football because they were independent. You know that Pitt's leaving. And then I go to New York City for Big East Media Days for basketball, and I talked to Rick Pitino, and the first time I ever interviewed Rick Pitino, coach of Louisville at the time, he looked me right in the eye and said, I think realignment's winding down. We're good. I don't think we're going anywhere. We like where we are. And then the next year they jumped and followed Syracuse, Pitt, and Notre Dame to the ACC and joined for all sports. And then you saw that big shakeup. I was living in that moment, living in that dust cloud. And, you know, you being a part of multiple divisions when it comes to collegiate athletics, and then you getting to see this from a leadership standpoint, when we go back 10 years and you see the American being born at like a phoenix out of what the Big East was, and the ACC expanding, and the ACC looking like they were getting powerful, Texas A&M getting the SEC at the time, Missouri, you know, seemed like a good move, I guess. They've been kind of quiet. 10 years ago, what were your thoughts when you saw this giant movement?
Well, let me start by saying this. So when you had that conversation with Rick Pitino,
Yeah.
I doubt Rick was lying to you. Rick probably wasn't in the know, because those decisions are made at the presidential level. So the president, probably with the athletic director, were making those decisions. Rick probably was not even in the know at that point in time. So I don't think he misled you at all. The second part of your question is, you're probably asking the wrong guy on this, because I didn't think it was broken before. I think I like Big East football the way they had it. I thought those were like institutions within a relatively close geographical footprint of each other.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when Boston College went to the ACC and followed by Syracuse, these schools still haven't recovered from that move as far as win-loss go. So, yeah, you're making more money on the TV revenue side, but is the Carrier Dome filled for football anymore?
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
Not even close.
And even worse than that, have people lost interest in Syracuse football?
Well, and that's the thing, is that, you know, coupled with losing, you lose these rivalries, right? And the thing that's weird is, in the current model, which the ACC is going to be changing next season, and we'll talk about that, but with the current model, Syracuse plays everybody in the Atlantic Division that they're in, and then they play two teams in the Coastal every year, one of those teams being in every year. Well, let me think about this. Yeah, no, because they play 6 and 2. So then they play one permanent Coastal team, which is Pitt, their rival, and then, but that's kind of lost its luster. And then they play a rotator. So they'll rotate with the other 6 teams that are in the Coastal, be it Duke or Miami, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech. So when you look at what they have now, have they recovered? No. BC, see, the issue that I have as a kid is I remember Miami coming to the Dome. And Miami hasn't been to the Dome in like 100 years. And it's so ridiculous to me that we're living in that type of a world. And so, I mean, you see Miami leave the Big East. When West Virginia did it, when they went to the Big 12, that's when you kind of got that like rumbling in your stomach, like something's going on, something's not right. And I think Virginia Tech, people think we're always a part of the ACC because of Virginia. They weren't. They were in the Big East. So has BC ever recovered? Not at all. Has Miami been relevant? Not recently. And, you know, Virginia Tech's had a couple moments. In basketball, Virginia Tech, obviously this past year won the ACC tournament. It was the first time they ever did it. It was their first ACC tournament men's basketball championship win ever. And, you know, as far as Miami goes, Jim Larinaga on the basketball side, good coach, strong coach, kind of looks like Jim Boeheim if you put them side by side. And, but in Miami kind of shocked a few people this year because they thought the ACC was weak, which I did not say. And Boston College in basketball and football has not been anything, and they just recently fired Jim Christian within the last couple of seasons, which, I like Jim Christian. He's been on the show. And so, this realignment world that happened before when Miami, BC, and Virginia Tech left the Big East, that hurt you really with Miami. BC, it was like, well, what are you talking about? Because Pitt, Syracuse, BC, Rutgers, like we all play each other. And then when West Virginia left, that really was a punch because West Virginia, Pitt, West Virginia, Syracuse. I don't know how much of a rivalry it is. Mountaineers, Syracuse has beaten you 4 times in a row. But,
No, but it was good. And listen, I went to school at Marshall University in West Virginia. People in West Virginia take West Virginia football very seriously, and it's a great atmosphere down there. But in my opinion, Dan, and again, this is just my opinion, what you're going to end up seeing pretty soon is you're going to have 2 conferences that are relevant.
Yeah.
Everyone else is going to be irrelevant. The ACC is going to be irrelevant. The national champion out of football is going to come out of the SEC every year. Why even play a playoff? Just do the conference championship. Those are going to end up being the 2 best teams in the country anyways.
Well, and that's the thing with the SEC, and that's the argument that I had was that as we're here with Pat Murphy, Executive Director of Athletics at Marywood University, myself, Dan Tortora, here in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership. We're here in the Hall of Fame, all the goodness here, all of the honorary people that are a part of this. Congratulations to all of you. I want to get my name on the board someday. I figure out how to do that. But
We'll figure that out together.
But happy to be here with you. We're on site, on location at Marywood University for a very special Pacer Pride. And with Pat having so much experience in the collegiate athletics world, we look at Division I and now here at Division III with Marywood University, having all this experience to add to our conversation that's been ongoing with realignment, NIL, transfer portal, and the future of the NCAA. I said after Oklahoma and Texas last year made the move about a year ago, when they said they were making the move, because it's supposed to be 2025, probably 2024. And I'm saying that because that's when mostly everybody will be situated. And you realize everything's going to be done before 2026, which is what? When the college football playoff ends its contract.
Right.
So I believe, and I've said this for like a year now, the SEC, in my opinion, is going to break into its own league. I think they're going to try to get to 20, and I think they're going to play their own playoff because they'll have so many good teams. And I mean, you think about it, the future of the SEC in their own playoff for a national championship, you have the hope that Florida will be back, LSU with Brian Kelly. You have Arkansas is better. You're hoping for Tennessee. Kentucky has some good moments. Obviously, Alabama, Georgia, Auburn. You bring in Oklahoma. I don't think Texas is going to be really relevant. I think Oklahoma could get to maybe 8-4, depending on who they play. And then I'm thinking Clemson comes in and Florida State. So if I'm naming all those schools to you right now, what would be a national championship outside of that if I'm naming 8 schools in the SEC that could vie for one?
Well, here, first of all, Clemson and Florida State will go that route because, like I said to you before, 5 years down the road, we're only going to have 2 relevant conferences. You're either going to be in the SEC or you're going to be in the Big Ten, and everyone else is going to be irrelevant. So, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, Dan. Again, this is just my opinion. I don't have any insight or any proof on anything, but it would not surprise me at all if the SEC ends up breaking away from the SEC breaks away from the NCAA, and it has their own little fiefdom per se, and they self-govern themselves, and they'll be their own little island out there.
What do you think makes more sense, the SEC being its own league, or the SEC and the Big Ten saying, let's do this together, let's play our own whatever playoff amongst ourselves, and then we'll play a championship between the SEC and the Big Ten?
I think that's the way.
You think that's where it's going to go?
I think that's where it's going to go, just because of the television money that'll be involved in that.
Yeah, and you look at it, and I did a college realignment map show. You should really check it out. It's on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Make sure you subscribe when you're there. But when you take a look at the map, with all this realignment that has no geographical barriers and it's ridiculous now, the SEC has stayed true. The SEC on the map is within Texas to Florida and then up to Kentucky. They stay in this southern model, and I know it's the Southeastern Conference, but they're in the South. If you look at the Big Ten, outside of what they just did, they're in this cloud up in the Midwest, right? They're up in this area, and they're stretching toward the Atlantic Coast Conference. And then you got the SEC, and they're touching each other. So literally, if you have a Big Ten SEC,
North-South.
You have North-South, which covers a huge part of the country, and then the Big Ten brings in California from the West Coast. So they can say, we've covered most of America when it comes to the top brands.
They can, and what the Big Ten has going for themselves is don't take media markets lightly.
No, not at all.
Because now they have Los Angeles, they have Chicago, they have New York, they have Detroit, they have Columbus, Ohio. Those are major media markets, and that counts for a lot.
Yeah, and I think, and why I think the American and the Sun Belt are going to last through this is that they're both going to have 14 football schools. Obviously they have, full membership, but they're going to have at least 14 member schools when it comes to football in the Sun Belt and the American. If you look at what their footprint is, the American stretches out a little bit higher. But if you look at the Sun Belt and you look at the American, they're in the same states as the SEC. They took that SEC model of let's have teams in Texas, let's have them in Oklahoma, Louisiana, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, the Carolinas. They bought that model. And I really think, and kudos to them for doing that, and I've spoke with both of their commissioners, I think that they looked at where the SEC's TV markets were, and they bought right into that.
But it goes back to what I asked you before, and you're probably in a better position to answer this. Will people consider them relevant?
I think what's going to happen is the tiers. I think, that top tier, I said before USC and UCLA moved to the Big Ten.
So it's almost going to be like a basketball model. You got the majors and the mid-majors.
Yeah,
and they're going to be in the mid-major part of it. Yeah.
You'll have the SEC by itself. You'll have the Big Ten try to get up there on that level, which I think they can. And then I think you'll have the rest of the conferences, the other 8 conferences that are currently there in FBS D1A, they're going to be the second tier. And then the third tier is going to be your FCS, which is going to look up at everybody and go, wow, that looks like a you-know-what show. Happy we're not a part of it. And they're going to sit there. North Dakota, there's a lot of things the Pac can do right now to stay alive. But to get to your point, I think it's SEC, Big Ten, because I thought the SEC last year was going to break away before the Big Ten did anything. So SEC, Big Ten, and then from there, I think the ACC, the Mountain West, the Sun Belt, the American, in the MAC, all these, the Pac at that time, the Big 12 at this point, if they don't expand, they're all going to be in this middle region now, where they're not going to be playing for the national championship. They're going to be playing for the Tier 2 championship. And it's funny how everybody laughs at the group of 5, but those other 3 conferences, the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the ACC, you might be the group of 8 now.
Yeah, it very well could be.
And the ACC, with all due respect, I love covering them, and I've done it for, a decade now, and love being a part of it. But I'm an impartial broadcaster, so as much as I love the ACC, and I know that the ACC needs to keep its membership, I can't argue against Clemson and Florida State and Miami going to the SEC. I can't argue. If the SEC wants 20, those are the 3, and then maybe you look at North Carolina.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense in the model that you're presenting. And it's funny when we're talking about this. My mind keeps going back to the other schools. Like, what does a UConn do?
because they thought that they could leave the American and leave their measly football program there, and they can't. And that's something that they learned the hard way, is they thought, and this is, privy to the information that I've been given, they thought that they could make a basketball move and bring all of their sports to the Big East and go back and play Villanova and play St. John's and Georgetown and so on and so forth, and that they could say to the American, well, you guys need us. And Mike Oresco said, if you're leaving, take all the boxes.
Yeah.
Take this 1-0 program. I don't want this program. And it was funny how when I talked to Mike Oresco about it, he was very clear and direct. He was like, if you're leaving, go.
But think
and that was it.
But think about this for a second, Dan.
Yeah.
As an independent,
Yeah.
okay, they'll never be able to schedule games against an SEC schedule.
Well, especially not now.
Not now, or a Big Ten. So they're going to end up playing the Tulanes of the world every Saturday.
Well, and that's the thing, is Tulane's in the American, so it's if they feel like it. Here's the issue, and you bring it up. When you're ballooning these conferences, if you're going to keep playing 12 games, but you have 16 to 20 team conferences.
Well, there's going to be no non-conference games. It's all going to be conference games.
Exactly. So let's say you're the SEC and you have 20. You're playing if you have 12 games a season, you're playing 11 teams. You're not going to play half of your conference every year. If you're in the SEC and you have 20, you're going to be playing 11 and the other 9 are going to be sitting out there. And how are you going to figure out that model? And that's why Clemson and Florida State become even more enticing, because if you don't bring them in to the SEC, you're going to lose Clemson, South Carolina, Florida State.
Well, I'll take it a step further, is that if you're talking about the Big Ten and the SEC where they're playing just amongst themselves because of the amount of teams, there's going to be no non-conference games. So a lot of these universities play these non-conference games to get a guarantee, which is a big money day, which funds their whole athletic department. So, for instance, let's just say Middle Tennessee State is going to go play at Michigan. Well, there's usually like a $400,000 to $500,000 payday for that game. Those won't exist anymore.
You don't want to know what Middle Tennessee got paid to play Syracuse in the Dome, and they beat Syracuse. They got paid, I believe, $900,000.
Yeah. Well, I was just throwing that figure out there.
Oh no, I just wanted to add insult to injury.
Yeah. No. I understand it, but a lot of these schools use those guarantee games to help fund or supplement the athletic budgets. Well, that's going to dry up and go away too. So.
Yeah. I don't think you could be outside of Notre Dame. I don't think you could be an independent anymore in football. And see, UMass and UConn are scheduled as easy wins. Those are easy wins. That's why you schedule those games, because you're going to beat them 9 times out of 10. Jim Mora Jr., listen, he's the new head coach of UConn, must give him a lot of money. But, my friend, Randy Etzel, was the coach there, and he was done super dirty. And so what UConn did, he brought UConn from FCS to FBS. Then he left, went to Maryland. Then he came back. And after Bob Diaco, who came from Notre Dame, he had to fix UConn, couldn't, and it was going to take so much time. And then they threw him independent, and I said to Randy, I'm like, they kind of threw you to the wolves on that one. And Randy always been respectful, obviously. Speaking to UConn or Maryland or anybody, Randy Etzel, really a stand-up person. But I told him, I said, I can say it from my point of view, they did you really dirty. And UMass and UConn are those games that you schedule to make that money. Those are your cupcakes, right? Your Citadels, your Abilene Christian, however you want to play. And so look at what BYU's doing. BYU's in the West Coast Conference for all their sports except for football. They're independent. Now they're joining the Big 12 next year, July 1st, 2023. So you're going to join all your sports now. So now BYU's not independent. Navy gave up their independence when they joined the American almost 10 years ago, right? So who's left? Army, UMass, UConn. There's a few teams out there, and Notre Dame. I don't think your football program, especially where we're heading, can make it as an independent, because like you said, you can't schedule games if these conferences are that big that they're not going to have non-conference.
Yeah, they're just going to play conference games. Yeah.
Right. So you don't have a conference. So who are you going to play? You play Notre Dame 11 times a year. I mean,
And where's the TV money going to go?
Right.
It's going to go strictly to those big conferences.
I know how to get Notre Dame in a conference. Want to hear?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So you know that they make a ton of money and they have to deal with NBC, which ironically, I believe is up at almost the same time the college football playoff is up.
Yeah,
which is
2026, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep.
So right around that 2025, 2026 sweet area where everything seems to be coincidentally, and I don't believe in coincidences, follow the money people. But when you look at Notre Dame, there's an easy way to make them, to force them. When you model this new college football playoff, whatever it's going to be, you say to Notre Dame, you can't qualify for the college football playoff unless you're a member of a conference. Plain and simple. Call their bluff. Yeah, you guys can have your money, but you can't play in the national championship.
Well, but you're assuming that NBC is going to re-up a huge contract for television, but they may not.
They
if
always
Notre,
have, though.
yeah, but things have changed. Things have changed. If Notre Dame is not going to play the schedule or be able to play the schedule
Yeah,
that
who
they
are they gonna
once
play?
did, because there's no one to play anymore,
Yeah.
why would NBC pay that type of money
I think the entire country's
to
trying
watch
to
them play Marshall?
I think they're trying to choke Notre Dame into something, and which conference now? Notre Dame has all of their sports except for football and the ACC,
Mhm.
right? So they get to make revenue sharing money with the ACC. This is the perfect marriage, right?
It's Big Ten. I know where you're going with this, right?
Yeah. Well, like what's surrounding them?
Big Ten.
If you look, like I said, you go back, watch the show, look at the map. The giant ominous cloud that is circling South Bend, Indiana.
Not only that, though, but if Notre Dame were to join the Big Ten, then it closes the gap between the SEC and the Big Ten.
And I agree with you because I think the only two big pieces left to fall are Clemson and Notre Dame. I think if Clemson falls to the SEC, which is already the most powerful, and Notre Dame joins the Big Ten, then everybody else is just left watching because there is no greater, because that could be a champion. I mean, to me, that could, Notre Dame going to the Big Ten, they have a bunch of rivals there. It makes perfect sense geographically. And the Big Ten can give them big money. And what I think these conferences need to do with grant of rights and revenue sharing is, if they haven't already, they need to tier it, right? So the ACC has every right to say to Syracuse, you're not making the top tier. We're going to give Clemson, Miami, Florida State, we're going to give them this money, right? Pitt made the championship game, so we're going to do this. But when it comes to football, Syracuse, Duke, Virginia, BC, you're going to get a third of what we're giving Clemson. Because there's no reason, and I'm arguing this, I mean, I'm from Syracuse, New York, but I'm arguing this in reality. Why are you paying Syracuse football, which you're paying Clemson football? There's no relevancy to ACC football if you cut off the head. If you lose Clemson, Wake Forest found this out last year. The college football playoff is not interested in the ACC. They're interested in Clemson.
Right.
So if you don't have Clemson, you got nothing. So if I'm the ACC right now and I'm in this grant of rights deal until 2036, you want to keep Clemson, you want to keep Florida State, you want to keep Miami, you got to do everything you possibly can. The first thing you do is say, listen, we're going to move to a percentage, and you three and North Carolina and whoever, we're going to give you guys the most money, and then we're going to play it from there. Because Syracuse should not, what they've put on the field in the last 6 years plus, there is no way that Syracuse should be making anywhere near what Clemson makes.
No, I agree with that. But keep in mind, Clemson's only come on the last 6 or 7 years. Prior to that, they were like a middle-of-the-road ACC team.
Well, no, that's the thing, Davos, when you change the world.
Yeah.
But, in the case of Florida State, like, they're coming back. But again, you look at TV, you look at the state, Florida State, Miami, those are enticing. North Carolina is better in football. They're obviously always relevant in basketball. But Duke is a weird enigma because Duke is like revenue sharing wise for men's basketball, they're up there. Women's team's gotten better. But football, it's nothing. And they just parted ways with David Cutcliffe, who's the one that has, spent years training Peyton and Eli Manning and sending a bunch of guys to the NFL, Daniel Jones most recently. So it's the ACC is in a dicey place. And I was going to say this earlier in the week, and forgive me that I didn't. It's not because I forgot. It's because yesterday we ran past time. But I think the SEC is playing, and I play checkers. I have never played chess, so I'm going to use a checkers analogy. I think the SEC is backing the ACC into something that they don't even know that they're falling into. The SEC sitting there, and they're kinged. And the ACC is forgetting that they can back jump, they could double jump, they could jump their own person, come back around. Because what I think that grant of rights deal, that until 2036, that's keeping everybody together. Well, if they form this partnership with the Pac-12 and they have to rewrite their TV deal, and that somehow loophole opens up the grant of rights deal, then that leaves all of their institutions vulnerable. And I think the SEC is waiting for the ACC to open up the grant of rights in order to include the Pac-12 and figure that out. And the moment that they do that, they're going to grab Clemson and Florida
So you're
State.
almost saying they're backing them into a corner, and then they're going to be able to get them back on their terms.
Yeah, they're going to be.
It's a business move, is what it comes down to.
I think the SEC is sitting there going, yeah, we can pay for them now, but we'll wait until you open up your grant rights thing and you try to force this weird thing with the Pac-12 and the ACC. And when the ACC does that, I think they're going to sneak right in and go, oh, look, we got you for cheaper on the dollar.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's why we haven't heard, because grant of rights, we talk about money, but it's the SEC, right? If they go to the ACC and the ACC goes, it's going to be $200 million to get Clemson. The SEC is like, all right, cool. Do you want that by noon? They could PayPal that to you. I mean, it's nothing for the SEC. Money is not an option to them. It doesn't matter. And in my opinion, so the thing that's really hard for me is if these teams leave the ACC. I mean, I've covered them heavily for a decade, and I plan to continue to, but it's going to drastically change what my ACC world looks like. I don't want it to happen personally because
it's already starting.
But I think it's going to happen because it makes. Can you argue, if you were right now the athletic director of Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, can you argue against going to the SEC?
No, because I'd be scared to death that I'm going to be left on the side of the road at some point in time, whether it's now or whether it's 5 years down the road. Like I said, I really believe if we continue to go the way we're going, okay, it's going to come down to two conferences and everyone else is going to be irrelevant. And what happens if you're irrelevant? People stop caring.
Well, and that's the thing.
You're not going to be able to get games against these other guys. So if I'm the athletic director at a Clemson, I'm jumping as quick as I can jump onto that ship, or I'm going to get left behind.
The worst action, and those of you that have been watching and listening, thank you. And I've said this on Wake Up Call inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. The worst action is inaction. And the ACC is the only power conference that hasn't moved. The Pac-12 had their head cut off. The Big 10 or the Big 12 had their head cut off. The SEC gained the head of the Big 12. The Big 10 gained the head of the Pac-12. The Big 12 responded. The Pac-12 hasn't yet, but I think they will. And here we are. The only one of those five that has not had their head cut off or taken a head is the ACC. They can't take the head of the Pac or the Big 12 because they're gone. They can't take the head of the Big 10 because that'll never happen. You're not going to take Ohio State or any of that. And they're not going to take Alabama and Georgia. So the ACC can't make any other big move except for two. Keep Clemson, because everybody else will stay, and get Notre Dame. Those are the only moves they can make. Now, they can make small moves, like Maryland, bring them back, get West Virginia.
But if I'm sitting at Notre Dame, is that an enticing move to me at this stage?
Money-wise, the Big Ten's going to give you more. And the network's going to give you more. The ACC network Okay, I wanted to like it, but as a Syracuse native,
Yeah.
Syracuse fans cannot watch Syracuse games in Syracuse. They used to be on 3, 5, and 9. You didn't even have to have cable. Now you have to get the ACC network, you got to get this and this, you got to move to this, sometimes it blacks out. And it's so hard in Syracuse to watch a Syracuse game. So I would think the money, the ACC network is just really not holding its weight. I think the Big Ten that's the perfect sense for Notre Dame, but I said this earlier in the week. If Notre Dame has all their sports in the ACC except for football, you got them to play in your football conference in 2020 so they could feel what it's like. You got rid of divisions, which they're going to do next year, and you gave Notre Dame that, and Notre Dame played in the championship game against Clemson. They know what it feels like. You've asked them out on a date for years. They finally agreed to go on a date with you. They went out with you, you bought them dinner, you bought them again, then you took them out, then you took them to Disney, then you took them on a cruise. They let you kiss them on the cheek. They let you hold their hand for 5 minutes, and you're thinking, this is going to be my girlfriend if you're the ACC. And Notre Dame's like, no, I'm going to go live on the yacht with the Big Ten.
I just think this. I think years ago, conferences were formed based on geographical location, like-minded institutions.
Yeah.
Along like-minded institutions, schools that fit an academic profile of what you wanted to be associated with, like the Ivies or the Patriot League, and now conferences are being formed out of survival mode, is what it comes down to.
Survival and money.
And money, yeah.
But I mean, you bring up a perfect. What have they been called? Mountain West. What's the Pac? Pacific. What's the ACC? Atlantic Coast. Right? You have the Big East. You have the Mid-American. You have the Southeastern Conference. These conferences were named for that. What I think hindsight 2020, what these conferences realize is you never put a number, because the Big 12 has had 10 for years, and the Big 10's had 14. Now the Big 10's going to have 16.
Well, they just wanted to keep the brand, and that's what they did with that.
Yeah, and I think at this point, though, you're more than halfway to the Big 20, and the Big 12 hasn't made. The Pac has changed. They're the Pac-8, Pac-12, Pac-10. Now they're the Pac-10 again. They're not, but they should be because they're losing 2. But I have an interesting thing that I brought up, and somebody wrote into me this morning, and I love it. Much appreciation on Twitter @CallDT. Thank you for writing it in. So I think the Pac-12's best way of staying alive is to create a mega conference with the Mountain West, because then you would have Colorado State, Utah State, you keep Arizona State, you have Washington State, you still have Oregon, who's your top, and then you bring in Boise State, San Diego State. I think it'd be pretty nice. And it would, if you look at the Big Ten being up here, the Southeastern Conference being here, the country that's left beyond those two is the giant West. And if you take the Mountain West and the Pac and you put them together, you have Nevada, California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Wyoming, Arizona, Utah. You have pretty much every state.
So you're talking then. So then you're talking that. Then what would be then you're talking that ACC would be the East Coast part of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the Mountain West right now bonds with the Pac, they would have like close to 20. So I think that makes the most geographical sense. If the Pac is considering making a deal with the ACC, which makes no sense, I think the Mountain West with the Pac still makes them viable. I don't know if that makes them a power conference. I don't think it does. But it gives, if you're going by regions now, it gives them the third region of the country and the only region that's open right now.
But it does make sense to me if they rebrand it, okay, and it's not the Pac-12 anymore, and it's rebranded to something where you have the West Coast portion of it, and then you have the East Coast portion of it, and those two play a championship game as a fourth conference.
But would you want to see let's say Clemson leaves. So if the ACC has 10, football, right? If 4 leave, if we see North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State, and Miami leave, and the Pac keeps their 10, so it's 20, and they played a championship, do you want to see Wake Forest, Oregon? Do you want to see NC State, Oregon?
No.
Pitt, Oregon?
No, not especially. Not compared to what the SEC or the Big Ten
Pitt,
is going to.
Utah?
Yeah, not compared to what the SEC or the Big Ten is going to offer up.
All right, I think it's boring. I think Pitt, Utah in a bowl game is boring. So, and I like, I mean, Pat Narduzzi, a big fan, but I'm just saying, like, if I'm a fan and you tell me that I can see Alabama, Clemson in the same conference, or I can see Ohio State, Notre Dame, or Ohio State, UCLA, or Ohio State, USC, or something like that, versus Pitt, Utah, then I understand that the Pac is here and the ACC is here, and so they're saying, hey, if we work on the coast, we could become the coastal conference, and we can have both sides.
Well, I think there's definitely going to be a drop off, Dan.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to compete with the Big Ten or the SEC, but these schools are still going to need a place to compete.
Yeah.
Okay. And is Pitt, Utah, quote unquote, a sexy game? Probably not. They're not going to play at the same day and the same time that the SEC is going to play their championship either. So a diehard college football fan may tune into that.
But do you really want to see the Pac and the ACC play a championship game?
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm just looking at it from what are these conferences going to do to survive at this stage?
And I think the Atlantic Coast, what they need to realize,
or they're going to become irrelevant.
Well, the Big Ten is pushing this way. The SEC has already pushed that way. What the Atlantic Coast needs to realize is the Big Ten and the SEC, the two most powerful conferences in the country, are pushing you into the water. They are literally pushing you into the water. And the ACC, what's crazy is people say the SEC is the top, and then they say, well, the ACC arguably can be second because of Clemson, and if Miami and Florida State can ever get it together. But the reality is the Atlantic Coast Conference, again, inaction, silence. If I go to ACC Media Day and there's nothing, you know this as a director of athletics. You know this from working in multiple places and seeing multiple parts of the country. If everybody's making moves and you're sitting there,
You're going to get left behind.
yeah. If you're not the ominous cloud is coming. And again, the SEC, I think, is just waiting for the ACC to be dumb enough to open up their TV rights deal that somehow creates a loophole to let the SEC in and go talk to Clemson and talk to Florida. They probably, I would imagine people have already talked. And I would imagine that they're going to say, hey, let's just wait the next 2 months and we'll do what we got to do or whatever. But what I find to be really crazy for me is that I've covered the American and the ACC the heaviest in the last 10 years. And what I mean by that is boots on the ground, being with the coaches, being in the places, talking to the coaches weekly. The American in 2019 was concerned of the ominous Big 12 cloud. And the ACC, I feel laughed at that, right? That'll never be us. And now 3 years later, the ACC is the American, wondering what's going to happen to them. And it almost feels like overnight, Pat, that the ACC went from power to vulnerable. And who thought that the ACC would look weak? But I think right now, Jim Phillips, the commissioner, he needs to make a move. And right now, I think the perception of the ACC is night and day to what people normally think, which is they're untouchable. Now I think they're completely touchable.
Well, yeah, too. And, viewership looks at, or the fan base looks at the ACC as, a great basketball conference. But all these moves are happening because of football. That's where the big revenue is.
Yeah, if it was about basketball, Syracuse would have stayed in the Big East.
Yeah. So, it's a perilous time in college athletics.
So USC, UCLA, let's say you're the Big Ten commissioner, right? Let's say you're Commissioner Warren.
It brings a huge media market to the Big Ten. Yep.
So the Big Ten can't miss on it, right? Because they get California. But as a director of athletics, their Olympic sports have a 2,300-mile trek between.
Yeah. That's what people don't understand is that when you join a conference, it's one thing to fly out, charter a flight out, and go play a football game on a Saturday.
Yeah.
But we're talking all their sports now have to go across country.
Yeah.
So on one hand, it's almost hypocritical. We're saying that, student athlete. Okay, well, student comes before athlete. They're supposed to be students first. And we say that, the academic piece of this is what they're in college for.
Yeah.
But now they're flying cross country back and forth all week long. Think about it.
Well, and that's the thing is, when are they gonna go to class? Because
It makes it difficult.
I mean,
unless you charter all the time, and that's going to be an impossibility because of the cost.
and it's you're looking at 3 different time zones here, which is great for football on television because you could say, oh, we got football all day on Saturday. But if I'm Penn State, do I really want to get jet lagged? Go to USC for the Rose Bowl in January? Fine. But do I want to do that in November? Even for football, I mean, you're talking about the fact that your body in Penn State, you're going, okay, we're playing an 8 o'clock game at night. But that's a 5 o'clock game on the West Coast.
So USC, let's just use men's soccer or women's soccer.
Yeah.
The way the schedule comes out when USC may be playing Northwestern on a Tuesday, and then they have to be back at Rutgers. They're at Northwestern on a Tuesday, and then they're at Rutgers on a Saturday. They'll never be in Los Angeles.
Right.
Think about it.
What if your scheduling puts you in Rutgers on a Tuesday and puts you in, if you're USC, puts you in Rutgers on a Tuesday and then UCLA on Thursday? You want to do that? And your body, how's your body going to bounce back? I mean, talk about, my buddy Jason was talking about it earlier in the week, that UCF, when they were playing their bowl game against LSU on the West Coast, in their brain, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's gonna.
Well, it is to them. That's the condition their bodies in at the time.
And you can't. You're gonna. I mean, you talk about student athlete. When are you gonna be a student? You have all these road trips, and like you said, you just stay. If you have a game against Northwestern, a game against Rutgers, and Tuesday, Thursday, and then on Saturday you got to play Penn State. If you're USC, you're gonna stay there all week. You're gonna stay. You're not gonna go back home for a day. And then you're going to gain time, lose time, gain time, lose. You're going to screw people up more. So, I mean, when are these young men and women going to be in school? And how are you going to figure out the scheduling of it all? Listen,
they're going to end up doing it all online. It's the only way they can do it.
Yeah, if they're even doing it.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's something that we don't talk about is like, how's field hockey going to, and do people, the Big Ten and the SEC might be able to fund this, but I'm sorry, if the Pac-12 and the ACC bring something together, Syracuse always complains about money. I don't think Syracuse wants to send their field hockey team to Oregon. I don't think they want to do that. I don't think they're going to do that. And would I love to see Syracuse, Oregon in football for the sheer jerseys of it all? Yeah, of course I would. I'd love to see that crazy yellow with that bright orange, but beyond that, for the fan, and this has been, this is something I heard other people talk about, and I agree, for the fan, it's going to be great. For the coach that already thinks the schedule is ridiculous, it's going to be exhausting. For the ADs around the world, it's going to be tumultuous. And to the schools that don't have the bucks like that, or don't have, in Olympic sports, they don't really dedicate. Like Dr. Daryl Gross, when he came to Syracuse, he pushed Olympic sports, right? What's John Wildhack going to do with the Olympic side of things at Syracuse? Is he going to fund that and agree to send his teams to California and Washington and Oregon if that were to happen? And that's where I think it comes up because, again, everybody's focused on football, a little bit on basketball, and nobody's focused on soccer, volleyball, field hockey,
tennis,
lacrosse.
golf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do it, Dan. I really don't.
So when all the dust settles, give me your prediction here. Does the Pac-12 survive, or do they get raided by the Big 12?
I think they get raided.
Okay.
I think the Pac-12 at this stage, losing the biggest media market in that conference to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I think they're in an uphill fight as we speak.
Can Cal or Stanford, because they're both in, can they save it because they're still in California?
San Francisco again is not the media market that Los Angeles is.
Yeah. So you're in a situation like that. Does the Big 12, if they gain 4 to 6 schools from the Pac-12 and they balloon to 16 to 18, are they on the same level of the Big 10 and the SEC?
I don't think they're going to be on the same level.
Okay. I agree.
But I do think they would be relevant.
Okay. SEC, Big 10, breakaway. Who do you consider to be the scariest conference left then? The Big 12?
Wait, say that again?
SEC, Big 10, breakaway, do
Yep.
their own thing. Who do you consider to be the scariest conference at that point? Is it the Big 12 based on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, think about it like this too, Dan, is that we're making this, we're looking in a crystal ball right now. We're making these predictions. We don't know what's going to happen 7-8 years from now. It could all explode and change again dramatically,
Yeah.
you know? So as of right now, if it plays out the way you're saying, then yes, I would say that.
Does the ACC survive?
Well, they're going to have to figure out a way to survive. So
Do you think
I
they
do
have a-
think they're going to survive. I think you have some very wealthy institutions
Yeah.
there, some very good academic institutions. I think they will survive, but they're going to have to morph into something that
Yeah.
they probably didn't envision themselves morphing into 5 years ago.
Does the ACC say, figure out your football schools, we're going to do what the Big East did, and we're going to focus on basketball?
They could.
Syracuse, Big 10, stay in the ACC, go to the Big East and figure out football. What do you think about Syracuse? If you were John Wildhack right now, same job and at Syracuse University as the AD there, what would you do? If you right now were looking at everything, would you stay in the ACC, try and make it work? Big East, Big 10, where would you want to go?
If I was the athletic director at Syracuse,
Yeah.
I would be blowing up the phone of the commissioner of the Big Ten every single day,
I said they need to
trying
buy.
somehow, some way to get into that conference.
Notre Dame, stay independent, Big 10, ACC for football.
Big Ten.
Do you think they'll wait this thing out a few years and let everybody go crazy, or do you think they'll do it sooner?
I don't think they're going to monopolize their TV deal until that's done.
Yeah.
But I think those conversations have already happened.
Yeah.
Would be my gut. And
Everything's up at the same time.
yeah.
You realize that.
Yeah.
And college football playoff expansion had to go through, I think, 4 different levels. We were sent the email in the media. We were kept abreast of it. Thank you to the college football playoff for all that you do to give us the information. I appreciate it very much so. And so they told us the levels they had to get through. I believe they got through 3 of them, and then Oklahoma, Texas happened, and everything stopped. And then you're like, okay, but then people were still talking about 12 recently, and then USC and UCLA. I think, as you said, conversations are happening, no coincidences. I think the college football playoff expansion halted because the people in the know knew there were moves to be made, and they're not going to make a new college football playoff until they know what's going to happen. They could do college football playoff 1 and 2. They could have 2 tiers of it and say college football playoff, whatever the heck they want to call it, SEC Big 10, and then they could try and group the rest of them together and say, this is going to be our second one, have 2 playoffs played on 2 weeks in January. I think the college football playoff has not expanded yet because they're waiting for all the chips to fall. And for all of you that think that they didn't know the chips were moving, I think you're crazy.
Yeah, and I could also see it coming down to the SEC and the Big Ten within the conference play a semifinal round and then a conference champion that squares off then against the Big Ten champion.
Yeah, I mean, I think I need to see some type of SEC like playoff that has more than 2 teams, and then go from there. But I saw.
Now think about it. In SEC, 4 teams.
Yeah.
You have a semifinal round, and then a final. You have a champion. Big Ten does the same, and they both square off on New Year's Day.
Yeah. Then you get to have a college football playoff in the SEC, a college football playoff in the Big Ten, for argument's sake, and then you get to see a champion. I think that's the only way to do it, because the SEC has too much that I don't want them to just send one. I want to see what 4 teams at least would look like, because you can argue the college football playoff should be all SEC. And if Clemson goes in, get this craziness: Clemson, Oklahoma, Alabama, and then right in your SEC school, be it Georgia, LSU, or whoever. That's your college football playoff right now. So
Wait, who did you say?
Oklahoma's made it a ton of years, which people forget because they didn't win. So you got Oklahoma, you have Alabama. There's usually another SEC school that makes it. If they get Clemson in the SEC, then the SEC can say we have the college football playoff in our conference already.
And that other team may be Texas A&M over the next couple of years. So.
And I've argued they should have been in it 2 years ago. I love you, Jimbo. Big fan of Jimbo Fisher. Interviewed him for a while. Nick Saban took a shot, and man, it's like taking a shot at an ex-wife who knows all your secrets. I mean, Jimbo Fisher, when you take a shot at a coordinator, if anybody knows what you've been doing, you're OC and you're DC. But yeah, I don't know why Nick Saban took that shot at Jimbo, but Jimbo most certainly shot it back, and I don't know if Jimbo Fisher's done taking shots.
No, he may not be, but listen, Nick Saban did not get to where he is by chance. So in other words, that could have been a little psychological warfare. I mean, listen, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. So
who's more diabolical? If you were a coach right now, who would you not want to have psychological warfare against? Bill Belichick or Nick Saban?
Oh, wow.
Keep in mind, they both coached on a Browns team when the Browns were horrible.
Well, I don't know either of them. I've never been in a war room with either of them. But
just think about it. I could say
I think with Nick Saban, as smart as he is, I think he would probably have the tendency to show his hand a little bit before Belichick would.
Okay, I could see that.
That would be my gut.
I could see that, because Nick kind of slipped up with the Jimbo thing, I think, and if Bill really doesn't do that too much.
So, I mean, do you ever really know what Bill Belichick's thinking?
No, and I say this with love, Boston and Foxborough and all these places. Please understand this. If constipation could ever be humanized into a being, it would look like Bill Belichick. He is the epitome of constipation. He looks like it. And I was like, I don't know if I was in the media room with him every week, I don't know if I wouldn't eventually just want to because he doesn't open his mouth, he constantly mumbles, he's always in a bad mood.
Right.
You know, people say, well, Dan, what about Jim Boeheim? People don't get it. I have a good relationship with Jim of, a decade now?
Yeah, I listened to your podcast with Buddy Boeheim that you did maybe a week ago. Yeah. It was a great one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Buddy, Jimmy, Jim, it's been an honor. And I'm in the room when Jim gets upset. Cover the team for a decade, you're going to see moments. But I also don't ask him the questions that people ask him in an effort to see him freak out. And, I talk to him about things I want to know. We've sat in his office a couple times and we've had a lot of one-on-one conversations. We had one on a golf course. We've had him in a Mellow Center. We've had him in his office. And Buddy's awesome, and Jimmy too. And I say Buddy first because Buddy and I have known each other for 7 years.
Yep.
So, and I'm really proud of them. I hope they both catch on somewhere. I'm happy that Buddy had a nice showing with the Pistons recently. To get to this quick, though, because I know that you got to get hopping here. I know that we were going to talk about the transfer portal and NIL. I want to keep my promises to the people. I know you have strong opinions, and I do too. So, your thoughts on name, image, and likeness?
I can't say that I'm a fan of it.
Okay.
And my reasoning behind it is that You know, to me, if you're a college athlete, in a way you've been paid all along with a scholarship. So, you know, these kids go to school for free as opposed to the father that's writing a check for his son or daughter going to school for $250,000 over 4 years. And I think what you're seeing now with this NIL, I would have been more comfortable, Dan, if they would have set it up to be like an annuity, where money goes into an account that a student athlete could access when they're 45 years old or something along those lines, instead of directly paying them. Because now what you're going to see, I think, is that we're buying players now, is what's going to happen. So, you know, we talked about Syracuse a little bit.
Yeah.
Is Syracuse at a big disadvantage over, like, say, at USC? USC's got big money. They got the big Hollywood money out there. Syracuse is a mid-market team. How are they going to be able to compete to get the athletes like they used to be able to get?
They're not. You know,
They're not. Those days are over, I think.
And I think in today's world, you know, it's like the backdoor deals. I mean, it's what it's always been. It's, you know, finding a way to, you know, see, I'm not a rule breaker.
Yeah.
It's not what I do. And now if I think a rule is...
But now there's no rules, Dan.
Well, and that's the thing.
It's the Wild West again.
And that's the thing. There's no regulation. There's nothing on name, image, and likeness. And, you know, these collectives that have been formed, this is what you hear, and I've done a commissioner series called Commissioner Central Series. Check it out on any of our podcasting platforms. Podbean will have a slew of them for you, wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. But I asked every commissioner about their conference, strength and evolution of their conference, as well as every one of their thoughts on the bigger picture, NIL, transfer portal, NCAA, you know, what's going to happen in the future of collegiate athletics. And they all brought up collectives in a negative way, the ones that talked about it. And the collective being a place for a booster who used to not be able to shake your hand after a game and give you $1,000, but they did anyway. Now, a collective, they can say, you know what, instead of, like, if Marywood had a collective, they could say to you, hey, Pat, instead of, you know, doing any upgrades to the gym, or instead of, you know, putting turf out there for this sport, well, what we're going to do is we're going to take that money you would have asked us for, and we're going to put $3 million in a pot, and we're going to let you divvy that up in order to recruit the basketball
It is
team.
funny you say that, because that's what I was going to bring up next. It's going to hurt institutions inevitably, eventually.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because the rich alum who used to give $1 million to, say, the library or the endowment is now going to say, I'm going to give it to the student athlete directly, and I'm just going to wash my hands thinking that I did my thing.
Yeah, because they want to win games.
Right. So the institution at some point in time is going to suffer from this.
Oh, yeah. And the collective has been something that, you know, as people brought it up, it's just, it sounds like this Marvel villain, right? It sounds like this comic book, like, shadow figure that's just sitting there, because now all these illegal things that you get in trouble with the NCAA before, now you and I, if we were boosters for Alabama, you and I can get together and say, hey, you know, they sent us an email about the library, like you said. They sent us an email about one of the new dormitories that they want to build, but you got $3 million, I got $2.5. Why don't we pull it together and get a couple quarterbacks?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. And the haves are going to become stronger, and the have-nots are going to become weaker. Listen, the NCAA, let's go to basketball. Mm-hmm. The NCAA men's basketball, in my opinion, is the greatest sporting event in this country. Okay, what we saw this year was St. Peter's. St. Peter's finished, I think, third in the MAC, the regular season. Maybe they finished second, I don't remember. But what they did was remarkable.
Yeah.
That'll never happen again, the way this is going.
Well, and that's the thing is, I mean,
they may not even, mid-majors may not even be invited to the party from here on out.
well, that's the name, image, and likeness side of it, because people hear that and they go, okay, college football makes sense, but in basketball, if you can, and this is what it's not meant for, but again, there's no rules, there's no regulations, there's no check and balance, there's no central thing, because what the NCAA did, which has to in some way, and I know they talk about antitrust laws and everything, but in some way, shape, or form, the NCAA, I would imagine, has to be brought to court when they send out to 50 states that we want to do this name, image, and likeness thing. California approves of it. I think 9 states had something in place. 41 states either disagree with it, hadn't looked at it, didn't have anything in place, and the NCAA overruled 50 states, all 50 states of America, and said, you're gonna do it temporarily this year, and you all have to agree to it. So New York didn't have anything maybe set in place, but Syracuse had to do it. Buffalo could do it, anybody could do it. All because of California. How is the NCAA playing federal government? And I would imagine that the NCAA, which is keep in mind, folks, they are a non-for-profit organization. How can they, and I don't know why aren't people asking this question, or maybe they are, how did the NCAA tell 50 states, 9 of you have agreed to this, the other 41 of you have to do it because we said so? I mean, doesn't that break every state law?
Well, is that a fact? I mean, did the NCAA say you had to do that, or
Well,
did,
they allowed
was it up to
every
each-
school. I mean, it's allowed. I mean, it's up to, I guess, the university, but
Because
There was
I'm
no
under
approval.
it depends on the state.
yeah, but there was no state. It was like a temporary. You don't have to have anything in place, and we're going to do it because you didn't want this have not thing. But the way I understood it was California said yes, New York's working on it. These states like Florida, Kentucky, and some of these other places were putting things in place, but then every state could do it. And I don't know how the NCAA has I didn't know that they had the gavel that they could tell 50 states, hey, whether or not you have anything in place, let's try it out. Like, how can you make that ruling?
No, that's way above my pay grade. I don't know.
But this like name, image, and likeness thing, because there's no rules and there's no regulations, it's putting us in this world where anybody can do what they want to do, and I think it's difficult. I mean, if you here at Marywood said, okay, you know, I'm gonna get all my student athletes together because D1, D2, D3, everybody could do it. So I'm gonna get all my D3 student athletes together. I'm gonna form a collective because let's say Marywood alumni base. Let's say there's a few people that had a good amount of change, right? And so you said, as the director of athletics, I'm going to reach out to them. I'm gonna trump all of the, building all these other buildings and everybody else that's gonna call them from admissions and alumni, whatever. And I'm gonna go above the Alumni Association, and as the AD, I'm gonna say to you 10, this is why we want your money. We're gonna put this together. I'm gonna break it up between all my sports. What's stopping you from doing that?
Well, nothing's stopping me from doing that, but the moment I do that, I'll probably be looking for a new job come Monday because I don't think it's going to go over well with our president and our advancement office and all that. And I do think that we'd be hurting the institution directly, and I would never.
But do you think Alabama thinks that way?
I don't think. I really don't know if the directive is coming from Nick Saban or not, or it's just the boosters out there saying, you know, we're giving all our money to the men's or the football team or the basketball team or whatever.
But it was never supposed to be used as a recruiting tool.
It never was.
And you know that it is.
Oh, how about, when was it? A month ago, there was an article in USA Today that the head football coach at Ohio State penned a letter to the Chamber of Commerce of Columbus saying that he needed something like $30 million to be competitive.
Well, that's the thing about today's world is you can reach out to people and say, hey, I've heard from, and this is not just D1, I've heard from D2 coaches.
Remember SMU when they had the death penalty?
Yeah.
This is what you're seeing going on right now everywhere. It's
Right.
the Wild West.
I had a D2 coach tell me to my face, basketball. He said, first question kid asks, hey, how do I fit in? How much playing time? Whatever. He said the second question I get from most of my meetings, second question, what's the NIL situation like here? And that's in his kind of feeler outer verbal commit meetings, right? If I'm going to verbally commit to your school, tell me what my NIL is going to look like. And then, And I hear about schools that are starting these things,
But
and
it never was supposed to be that way. The coach was never supposed to be involved in helping them attain NIL. It was supposed to be a local car dealer down the road
yeah,
hiring the student athlete to endorse the car.
once they're at the school, not to get them there.
Yeah.
You don't, I'm not like Dan Tortora, the head coach, saying, hey, Pat Murphy, you own that Ford dealership down the road. I got Bob Smith coming in to play on the basketball team. Why don't you meet us at the pizza shop downtown, and why don't you meet us at Basilico's, and we'll have a little conversation about why he should come play here. But that's what it is now.
I know it's.
So couple that with
I'm not comfortable with it, to be honest with you, Dan. I think it's going to get worse and worse and worse.
but you got to check and balance the thing.
There's no checks and balances right now.
Well, the NCAA is rewriting its constitution, its president is stepping down. You're literally seeing a bunch of people throwing papers out the window, lighting trash cans on fire. The president is jumping out of the 20-story building, right? Like, if the NCAA isn't showing you what it is right now, when your president says at the beginning of the pandemic, I have no control over college football, well, then why does college football have the NCAA name? You let 5 conferences be autonomous, which means they're self-governing. At any given time, I spoke with John Swafford, the then ACC commissioner, multiple times. I said, can you leave? I said, based on autonomy, you're self-governing. He said, well, it's not out of the realm of possibility, and it's not something that's not on the table. We're just not doing it right now. That was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So now, with everything going on and realignment and all
That's
that.
his way of saying that's very much in play going forward.
Well, why would you legislatively change your group to autonomy? Power is a media term. Autonomy is the legal term that says these 5 conferences
do
can
what they
make.
want.
Right. They just said something. There was an article that just went out recently that the SEC and the Big Ten could turn around and say, we're not doing 85 scholarships, we're doing 95. Well, if they change the amount of scholarships and everybody else at FBS has 85, well, you know what I mean? If you can play by your own set of rules, then this isn't the NCAA.
But that's why going back to what we were talking about before with the SEC and the Big Ten, I think that they're eventually going to break away from the NCAA. They're going to set their own set of rules, and the SEC set of rules may be different than the Big Ten set of rules.
Yeah.
SEC could say 110 scholarships. Big Ten could say 95 scholarships. And then they'll self-governance themselves.
I think the SEC was leaving, and I think the Big Ten said, wait a minute. What if we did this? I think the SEC is already gone, and the Big Ten ran up, grabbed their coattails, and said, hey, what do you think about this? The SEC doesn't need them. But the Big Ten has obviously made a statement that they are bigger than the ACC, the Pac-12, the Big 12, and everybody else.
Yep.
And my final point here with you before I let you go, transfer portal with NIL and everything else going on, this does affect you because there are Division I institutions that are looking at D2 and D3, and they're looking at kids that maybe fell through the cracks that maybe they didn't see, or they've been using D2 and D3 as farm systems, right? They see somebody come here, and maybe someone comes here, plays on the Marywood women's soccer team, and let's say Jill Stevens, we'll call her. Jill Stevens is incredible. Wow, she's good.
Yeah.
We never heard of Moosic, Pennsylvania. And here's Jill Stevens, and she plays 2 years on Marywood women's soccer team. And then all of a sudden, Tennessee goes, you know what, we're trying to build up our program again. Why don't you come play for us? She gave you 2 years, she built up your program, and Tennessee said, hey, thanks for seeing something we didn't see.
Right.
And then they throw in the NIL deal and sweeten the pot and say, we'll pay you, and you can come play in the SEC.
Well, I'm not comfortable with it. I can tolerate that to a degree because, you know, if we care about the student athlete like we say we do, and it's really a chance for her in this case to better herself.
Yeah.
I think I'd be okay with it. What I'm not okay with is, let's say it's more at the Division I to Division I or Division III to Division III. We spend a lot of resources and time and energy recruiting a student to come to, let's say, Marywood.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'd like to think they're coming to Marywood because they like the academic programs we're offering. They have a rapport with the coach. They like their teammates. And to me, there's a commitment there that they should fulfill the equipment or the commitment for 4 years. Let's look at a Syracuse even.
Yeah.
Jim Boeheim spends, and his assistants, spent a lot of resources recruiting those kids to come to Syracuse.
Yeah.
And now the whole team could be gone in a year if they wanted.
The last 3 years, he has lost substantially. He lost, like, I think 9 players in 2 years.
Yeah, I mean,
it's already been.
But at some point, as a student, aren't you coming to Syracuse for other things besides basketball?
I think you used to.
They used to, yeah.
Used to.
I mean, could you imagine Eric Sandifer and Tony Red Bruin and Leo Routens today? They'd be gone in a year if they're not getting the playing time or the amount of touches on the ball as a freshman. As a freshman, by the way.
Yeah.
If they're not getting what they envision themselves to get.
Yeah.
As a freshman.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Well, if there's an NIL deal too, what if Carmelo Anthony wins a championship at Syracuse in 2003, and then he gets a phone call from Kansas, and Kansas goes, "Hey, we got NIL here. We'll give you $100 million to come and play for a year before you go to the NBA."
Yeah.
Why not? Why the heck not? Now all of a sudden, Carmelo's still playing college ball, but not for you. And I mean, it's free agency, and where my issue comes in here. I mean, the transfer portal, it does allow different divisions to go after each other's players and whatnot. But the thing that's tough is, I was talking to one of the coaches. They told me, they said, if your player, because they don't have to come, the student athlete doesn't have to go to the coach. It doesn't have to come to you. And a student athlete could leave Marywood, and when a coach goes into the portal, they can't see their own players. So let's say one of your coaches, right, Matt Ginto, right, just got hired here. Let's say 3 of his players left. Unless they tell him or tell you, he doesn't even know
until they're gone.
So he's thinking, I want 15 guys on the team by this date, and he doesn't realize he has 12. Right? So now I ask you this question as a director of athletics: are you telling your coaches here to be active in the transfer portal? Have you spoken with them about the transfer portal?
Yes, we've spoken about the transfer portal. I would stop short of saying, let's be active in it. Okay, I've been more along the lines of, let's take a look at it and make sure that we're not missing out on someone that we could possibly get here.
Yeah.
See, at the Division III level, it's a pay-to-play model.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone's willing to come to Marywood that's not happy someplace else,
yeah,
and we feel they can help us, well, we have to take a look at that person.
Yeah, and I think in the Division III model, which it frustrates me that Division I, Division II can offer scholarships, Division III can't, because I think you'd have more transferring in that case of a potential Division I player that from a mid-major, low major, from how people define it. Like an Iona might turn around and say, "Hey, I'm not getting the playing time. I want to go closer to home. I'm from Wilkes-Barre."
That could happen, yes.
But not having the scholarship, I think what you probably see in the transfer portal for Division III is more, a parallel, right?
Yeah,
from
it is. It's 3 to 3.
Yeah.
It's someone going from Kings because they're not playing to potentially at Marywood. Yeah.
And I think, you have to keep an eye on it, but it's just, I think in your case, maybe it's helped, and hopefully it is, at Division III, because there isn't that,
Well, I guarantee you, Enrico, our men's basketball coach, who has a very close eye on the transfer portal.
And you have to, and I think hopefully working in the favor of Division III schools is the fact that, if you're going to school for that major, you're going to school, they say Division III is the most authentic model in the sense of the fact that you are coming to play for the love of the game because you're not getting free tuition. And I got scholarship and whatnot, but you can get scholarships, but you don't have a free tuition. So the hope is that somebody really has to dig down and think, like, am I leaving because my coach left? Am I leaving because I'm not playing? But this whole, having to worry about somebody moving, I think it's probably outside of playing time or a coach leaving. I think, Division III, you're not having to worry about what Division I and Division II are, because you're just, you're saying, okay, free scholarship for a free scholarship. When they come to Marywood, you would like to think, okay, there's a lot more that they like about this than just whatever team they're on.
Yeah, I would like to think, like, let's just say we're recruiting Dan Tortora to play basketball at Marywood University.
Yeah.
Well, Dan Tortora decides he's going to go to Wilkes University or St. John Fisher, wherever you decide to go.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're there, you're not getting the playing time that you thought you would, or you were misled or whatever, or you don't like your roommate, or it just isn't working out for you at Wilkes.
Yeah.
So we'd like to keep an eye on that person, because maybe they're not happy, and maybe they made the wrong decision to go to Wilkes in the first place, and maybe they'll take a look at Marywood again.
And the good thing about that is coaches can't give you a list anymore. A coach can't tell you, like, you can't go to these places. So, because Wilkes would probably, say, don't go to Marywood, you can't go to Kings. But that's, I think of the Division III model, because, you don't have, the lure of me playing here and scoring 25 points a game and having, 7-8 assists a game, and a D2 school might call me up and say, hey, wouldn't you like a scholarship? That becomes enticing. But in the Division III world, you would like to hope that, you have more time to develop, because they say it's a more genuine part of athletics, because of the fact that there's not all this crazy money being thrown around, that somebody's coming to school here to actually
Go to school here.
Yeah. Because that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, Dan, that's the way it's always supposed to have been, no matter what level you're at. It's just the craziness of the last 3-4 years.
So maybe Division III becomes its own institution.
Listen, I'm old school. I'll go back to, I think, when we first started talking today. I never thought it was broken in the first place.
Yeah.
And here we are. So.
Hey, you could argue if the Big East never got rid of football, life wouldn't be as crazy as it is right now. So I miss you, Big East. I love you. I will say, though, Big East basketball is still happening, still at the Garden, and I got to be at the Garden this March, and it was a beautiful event, and there is literally absolutely nothing like sitting in the Garden. And the feeling I got on my shoulders, and oh my God, it felt incredible. So with that being said, we're going to have a little bit more of show coming up for you here from Marywood University, on-site, on location, for this edition of Pacer Pride. But we're going to let Executive Director of Athletics, Pat Murphy, get rocking here.
Thanks, Dan. It was a pleasure.
Appreciate you as always.
No, I appreciate you, and I appreciate all you do for Marywood. Marywood's a great institution. As you know, you're an alumnus of here, and thank you for everything.
Final note on the year in review, anything you want to say about the Marywood sports and maybe what you're looking forward to?
Well, I'll tell you, we had probably the best spring we probably ever had here. I got some notes here. We had 5 of our teams earned AEC academic awards.
Yeah.
Jake Schuster was the AEC Medal of Inspiration, won that.
Also a member of Pacer Pride, has been on the show.
Has he been on the show?
Shout out to Jake.
Yep. He was also first team All-Region.
Yep.
So women's tennis conference champs, softball regular season conference champs, ECAC champions. Men's lacrosse went 11-6 this year. I believe they tied the most wins ever in school history. John Knowles, Coach of the Year. Track and field conference champs. Esports, second seed in the NECC. Golf finished second in the AEC. But baseball I'm really proud of, because most wins in school history, highest GPA in the conference, tied longest winning streak in the history of our school. So I can't imagine a better spring than what we've had this year. No,
you had an incredible run of multiple sports, and I want to shout them all out. Fantastic coaches, by the way.
Absolutely.
John and John, Jason, Rob, Dana. There's so many people to mention here, to all the programs. From golf to everything that, like you said, we saw with softball, with baseball, with track and field. Cross country before that, and we know that basketball continues to build. We know that soccer with Matt Ginto coming in also from Syracuse at Central New York. Shout out to Matt. what he's planning on bringing here, what Andrew Smith has done with women's soccer for so long. You know, there's so much to be excited about at Marywood University, and there's also what you're tasked to do as executive director of athletics, which there's some new opportunities and some openings and coaching vacancies that I mean, how do you? I would get excited to run out there and see what's out there. Do you get do you get elevated for stuff like that?
For coaching changes?
Yeah, when obviously it's hard to lose one and when you've been successful. But.
Well, listen, it's bittersweet. In other words, coaches here, they do a bang-up job, they do a great job, and another opportunity arises that it's closer to where they grew up, or it's closer to home, or whatever. You know, it's a bittersweet situation. Rob Aarons is leaving us for Gannon University. But I said to Rob, Rob, what more can you do here, Rob? You win the league every single year. You're going to win another championship this year. There's not much more you can do. I'm proud of you. You need to go. You need to go. You need to take this opportunity if you feel it's a better opportunity for you. So I think it's a good thing. I mean, if coaches move on, the only way they're moving on is if they've had success. Then it's a better job for the next person coming in.
Yeah, you know, you have...
I don't hold people back. If they want to go, I'm there to support them to go.
I just asked that Rob Aarons leaves at least a couple of those banners behind because he owes me one or two.
All right, make sure he knows that.
There's a lot of great that's come in here, and to that point, like you said, for the next person. Do you get excited to go out on the, like you said, it's bittersweet because you're so happy for these people and everything they've done at Marywood, but when you go out to look for the next right fit, do you get excited about that journey?
I do. But you just hit it on the head, the right fit. You know, we have such a good staff here, and we have such good coaches here. Do I want to find the best coach? I do. But I also want to find the best coach that's the right fit with everything else. Because you can find a great coach, but if he comes in here and he's a little bit of a cancer, it could bring this whole house of cards tumbling down. So you got to be very careful as to find who you think can fit in with everyone else. Because right now we have a situation where, you know, everyone supports each other, everyone has each other's backs. You know, field hockey will come out and watch volleyball. Volleyball will come out and watch soccer. You know, and we have that dynamic going on now. And I don't want to disrupt that dynamic. And I also think it's probably part of the reason why we're as successful as we are.
Yeah.
But the real success is the people.
Yeah. You know,
not me. It's the people that we have here. Yes.
So excited about what's to come. Thankful for every single coach out there at Marywood. We thank you so much for everything that you've done, and I thank you for being a part of the show, and you all know who you are, and I appreciate you. Student athletes as well, you always have a home here in Pacer Pride. So with that being said, Pat Murphy here with us at Marywood University in this edition of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. And Witty Wicks, I told you your candles are going to be with me in the studio, so I brought one with me to Scranton, PA. And this one is called Summer in Cuse, and I had Pat Murphy test it here before we put it out. So, Pat, thank you for everything as always. I look forward to talking to you soon.
I said I felt a hint, or I smelled a hint of Oneida Lake on it.
Yeah, you know, so... Thank you to everything you do to Witty Wicks. We have a lot of great stuff coming up here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Follow us after this break as we continue to go live from inside of the Wall of Fame room here at Marywood University, my alma mater, in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership.
All right.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout Central and Upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. As a patient, what do we want? To be cared for, to be listened to, and to have someone walk us through the process on our path to victory. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics does all of those things beautifully, with Dr. Mark Petropoli leading the team on 791 West Genesee Street in Skaneateles, New York, located minutes from beautiful Skaneateles Lake. Whatever your injury may be from head to toe, preventative care, rehab, physical therapy, laser therapy, and surgery are all available at Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, where they care about us, they listen to us, and they understand that everyone's path to victory is a little bit different. Let them help you on yours by calling 315-685-7544 to make your appointment today. That's 315-685-7544. And find out more information at victorysportsmedicine.com. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
This is Jim Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career, it's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
This is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, you can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
Witty Wicks Candles and Gift Shop, Township 5 Camillus, where you will find handcrafted all-natural soy wax candles over 60 cents to freshen up your home. We carry a wide range of locally made items, Salsa Q's, Syracuse Salt, and Chocolate Pizza Company, to name a few. Let our knowledgeable staff help choose unique gifts and keepsakes for any occasion. Gifts for family and friends, and maybe a little something for yourself. Witty Wicks Candles and Gift Shop, Township 5 Camillus.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios as we are on site, on location at Marywood University. And right behind me here is part of their athletic complex. This is where you see them play volleyball as well as men's and women's basketball. And Jen Carlton walking around right now doing a little showing of everything. The women's basketball head coach out recruiting, doing her thing. So big shout out to Jen and to everybody. A big thanks to all of the coaches here at Marywood University, and I want to make sure that we include every single person here. So I want to shout out, obviously, Jason Thiel for baseball, for basketball, Jen Carlton on the women's side, on the men's side, Enrico Mastriani for cross country and track and field for men's and women's. I know he's moving forward again in university in D2, but I want to thank Rob Ahrens for everything he's done for esports, Jacob Adler, the director of esports, for field hockey, Julie Trott. Want to give her a lot of love here. And to the golf world, I want to thank, when we look at Marywood Golf, Patrick Lloyd for men's and women's golf. Big shout out to Patrick Lloyd. And when lacrosse, John Knowles wrapping things up on the men's side as he steps forward. Carrie Brown for women's lacrosse. And of course, for rugby here, I want to also make sure that we thank the coaching staff for men's and women's. Woody Cole, big thanks to Woody and everybody there. Obviously to all the assistants everywhere, to John Butash when we look at softball as well, and to men's soccer, Matt Ginto coming in, and Hunter staying on as an assistant coach, and of course for women's soccer for Andrew Smith. So for everybody, thank you to everyone, all of the coaches, all of the teachers, all of the student athletes that are here, everybody that is an alum of Marywood University, as well as current students and student athletes and our future students and student athletes. And a big thanks to all the administration, and just cannot thank you enough, Rob Kurowski, for being a part of the show, and of course the president of Marywood University. A big thanks to Sister Mary Persico. So with that being said, we will wrap up this video and start our fantasy football one. For now, this is Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, thanking you for listening and being a part of the show. Our archive has expanded. We now have 12 places at least you can get the show. Search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora or Wake Up Call DT on Amazon Music, Audible, as well as iHeartRadio, iTunes and Apple Podcasts, MixLR, Player FM, Podbean, Podvine, TuneIn, Spotify, Stitcher, and YouTube. A big thanks to all of you listening Monday through Friday and watching Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on YouTube.com, Facebook.com, and MixLR.com, all /WakeUpCallDT, Facebook.com /LiveNowDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.com. And thanks to all of our partners in Central and Upstate New York and beyond: Cafe Cubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, PB&J's Lunchbox, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Avicoli's, MonPazPopcorn.com, and MonPaz Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory in Liverpool, New York, Witty Wicks, Canine Campground, Dog Boarding, Honda City of Liverpool, Pizza Man, the Millhouse Market, Victory Sports Medicine Orthopedics, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Mother's Cupboard, and Wake Up Call is the proud multimedia marketing partner exclusively for Marywood University, as well as Lemoyne College and Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to Marywood for hosting me today. Thank you to Cafe Cubal, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, as well as 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse in their drive-through location. Find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. I told Aubrey and the gang at Witty Wicks that my candles would be here all throughout July in the studio, so I actually traveled 2 hours from Syracuse with this candle to make sure it was here in the set, on the set here between Pat Murphy and I, and this is the Summer Infuse. Just bought it yesterday. Got to take another smell of it, and it's going to be here with me for our next video for fantasy football. Thank you to Executive Director of Athletics Pat Murphy for an incredible conversation on collegiate athletics in general, including Marywood University. Find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. And as always, God bless. No stress. Do your best. This, to me, is an awesome, how cool is this background? So amazing here with the window overlooking the basketball court here. We'll talk with you soon on Facebook.com /WakeUpCallDT with Mike Sofka, and on Facebook.com /LiveNowDT. And thank you for watching this very special Pacer Pride exclusive from Marywood University.